the Parking Authority of Baltimore City.
Get right up here. Yep. Thank you. So would it come up on the screen here? Or? Yeah. All right. Thanks. Good morning. Hey, Councilwoman. Well, thanks for having us here today. My name is Pete Little. I'm Executive Director of the Parking Authority of Baltimore City. With me here today are the other members of the executive team at the Parking Authority. We have Candace New, Chief of Operations, Mackenzie Wright, who's Deputy Chief Financial Officer, David Rhodes, General Counsel, and Sandra Downs is somewhere here. She's our Chief Financial Officer. We're a very small, lean quasi-agency with 51 team members altogether. Our mission is to, I should move forward to the mission here. Our mission is to find or create and implement parking solutions for Baltimore City and to be the resource on all things parking in Baltimore. This past, or this fiscal year that we're in right now, we accomplished all of the goals that we had set last year. That included installation of new parking access and revenue control equipment at 11 of the 12 city-owned or city-leased parking garages. We have just one more to go, and that'll be completed this summer. We also implemented a new residential permit parking online permit system that enables us to allow or expand virtual permit parking to more residential permit parking areas throughout the city. And we also are in the process of implementing multiple mobile payment apps and a text-to-pay option at metered parking spaces throughout the city. And so far, we've implemented that downtown in Federal Hill, Fells Point, in Harbor East, Harbor Point, and in Mount Vernon. Our goals for this coming year are to continue the implementation of those mobile parking payment options throughout the city. We're looking to have that completed actually by the end of this calendar year. We'll also be completing a whole host of capital projects at the garages, including structural repairs at the Penn Station, Franklin Street, and Little Italy garages, replacement of the elevators at the Baltimore Street garage, which is across Fayette Street here from City Hall. And in partnership with the Department of General Services Energy Division and through grant funding from the Maryland Department of the Environment, we're going to be replacing the old fluorescent and metal halide fixtures in at least 3 more garages with more energy efficient and brighter LED lighting. We just completed that actually at the Baltimore Street garage here. We also aim to increase the revenue collected per parking space at the garages by 2% or more in this coming fiscal year. Our budget highlights include funding for the maintenance and operation of over 1,000 multi-space parking meters and over 2,000 single-space parking meters throughout the city. Also funding for the maintenance and operation of the 12 city-owned or leased parking garages and 20 city-owned parking lots, and funding for the administration of the other programs that we manage on behalf of the city, including the residential permit parking program, residential reserve disabled program, valet regulations, and electric vehicle charging programs. A couple of our metrics are listed here. The first is the total number of on-street parking permits we distribute. We expect that number is going to start to increase again this year due to the expansion of several of the residential permit parking areas throughout the city, and also through an increase in parking enforcement in those residential permit parking areas. So parking enforcement is, of course, part of the Baltimore City Department of Transportation Safety Division, and we work very closely with them and have been to continue to ramp up enforcement of parking regulations. And then we also expect the revenue collected annually per space at the city-owned and city-leased garages to increase post-pandemic here as demand for parking at those facilities increases due to our marketing efforts. And with that, I'll take any questions. Oops.
Thank you, Director Little. I'm going to call you Director. Councilmember Blanchard.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Director, thanks for coming this morning. I'll start briefly by just saying that I know that having a competent, efficient, fast responding organization is a priority of yours, and it so pays off. And it's super helpful. Got a lot of neighborhoods in my district that are RPP or just generally, parking scarce neighborhoods, and it is really, really appreciated how responsive your folks are.
Yep. Thank you.
So talking about enforcement and compliance and revenue and all that good stuff, can you talk through meter revenue trends over the last several years?
During the pandemic, it was reduced quite a bit because there just wasn't the activity. So, it got down to $6 or $7 million annually. It's risen back up to about $10 million per year, and it's remained at about that level since.
And where was it before the pandemic?
We got to as high as a little over $15 million pre-pandemic.
Okay. Do you think, obviously there have been some challenges with enforcement, both in metered spaces and in the RPPs, everywhere across the city. Do you think that the challenges with enforcement have led to a drop in compliance and therefore a drop of revenue generated by parking meters?
It's likely that it had some effect on that. I know that, the safety division had difficulty recruiting and retaining team members, but, lately they've come back up to the levels, pre-pandemic levels in terms of the number of officers. So, like I said before, in working with them, we're seeing increased enforcement. But to answer your question directly, yes, the challenges did very likely have an impact on it.
Okay, could you put a dollar amount on if you had to speculate as to the amount of lost revenue from the lack of compliance?
I'd have to get back to you with an answer on that. Yeah.
Okay. Madam Chair, I'd like to make an official request.
Executive Director Little, how long would that take for you to respond to Councilmember Blanchard's request?
Probably by the end of next week.
The end of next week?
Mm-hmm.
Sounds good. Yeah, I just think that it's, obviously parking enforcement is important for a lot of reasons which are not revenue related, but then there's also the lost revenue when you don't enforce. But then there's also this secondary lost revenue from not having compliance on parking meters. So I think it's, as we the mayor and city council think about the impact and the importance of effective enforcement, it's important for everyone to be on the same page of how much we are losing by when this isn't done effectively.
Now, just to clarify too, we can estimate the figure for lost parking meter revenue, but I wouldn't really be able to for citation revenue.
No, and that's not, right. Yeah, sorry, just the lost parking meter revenue due to a lack of, compliance, which you think is potentially due to a lack of enforcement, so.
Got it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Director. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Council Vice President Middleton.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess first a comment. I kind of miss the parking authority.
We
when
miss
I
you too.
first started on the council, I was a long-serving member of that board for a while. So I know the hard work that you do for this city and up close and personal experience. So thank you for your continued work. I guess one of my questions I'll carry through from when the convention center person was here, and just kind of talking about, I guess, updates and partnerships with other agencies. And one thing I noticed, I don't know about your updates with, I guess, the disability parking signage. There are some areas around the city where those spaces are still there but the house is abandoned, the person is deceased, and people are using illegally the space because no one has really updated or have been checking in these surrounding communities. You can comment on that.
Sure. I think you're talking about the residential reserved disabled parking program, or if someone has a permanent mobility
Yes.
restricting disability, that can get a space reserved in front of their home. We do have a requirement right now that people renew their application for that program annually. And so, there are spaces get taken out, get removed as part of that process. Typically, there are anywhere between 25 and 30 of those spaces monthly that get taken out as a result of that. But we also do get phone calls from family members or neighbors to let us know if that person is either moved away or is deceased. And of course, if it's a neighbor that's reporting it, we have to investigate it to make sure that that's a fact. That's not always the case. But, when we investigate and find out that that's the case, then we remove them as well, too. Some of them may remain for a while until the next renewal cycle, annual renewal cycle, after a person has passed or moved away, and family members may be using it. But, we have those other means to kind of get them removed when they need to be removed, at least at the renewal date.
Thank you. I'm
Sure.
glad you're aware and trying to keep up with that.
Mm-hmm.
And has a council rep been designated yet to be a part of? Oh, you're the official, okay.
Yep.
All right,
Councilman Blanchard, yeah.
that's going to be a wonderful experience.
Yeah.
Thank you, Madam VP. That's an interesting choice of words, but
It is a very good team, so good luck with that. And your connection with the convention center, is there a strong connect with, because that was one of the questions when I posed to them. One very strong problem or reason why a lot of people still hesitate in coming to the city for events. When they get in these parking garages, sometimes it takes an hour to get out of them. And we lose revenue because that's a simple reason why people don't come downtown for events. Are you working with them to try to help resolve some of that issue?
Yeah, most of the garages that are in close proximity to the convention center, we don't own or operate. They're privately owned or operated, but, we do assist the convention center whenever we can. And then, we obviously have contacts with all of the private operators in the city. So if there are specific problems with facilities that either their, folks who are coming to conventions have experienced, and they may not necessarily know who the operators or owners of those facilities are, they've reached out to me, and I then, get in contact with those operators. But yeah, we do help the convention center whenever we can.
Okay. Can we have an updated, this is a request, an updated list of the garages we own?
Sure.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
And there are 2 that the city leases as well.
I'm
So,
sorry.
There are 2 garages that the city leases that we manage on behalf of the
okay.
city. So there are 10 that are owned, 2 that are leased.
Oh, okay.
Councilman Gray?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to talk briefly about the application and recertification process for those individuals who had medical justifications from their doctors for permanent disabilities. You just talked about one of the ways that you guys can ensure that folks are no longer deceased or they no longer need them is the yearly certification.
Yep.
But this process is often being brought up to from our constituents year after year as they come to us trying to navigate a lot of those barriers that are put in place. Making medically certified permanently disabled residents recertify on an annual basis typically becomes costly, and it's just a burden on them to have to go to the doctors every year to get this, or remember to get the certification. If they don't, in certain instances, then they have to actually schedule another appointment to actually get the recertification. And so having to come into the office or mail the documents in is a large burden on our residents, knowing that this is brought up every year at the budget hearings. And are you guys willing to modify this practice to make it more sensitive of the limitations of our disabled residents?
So not only are we willing to, we have actually just recently removed that requirement that they get the recertification from the doctors. We had to go through a regulatory process in order to do that. But yeah, based on, I think you may have brought it up with us last year, even within that period of time, we've removed that requirement for that recertification by a doctor.
Okay, that's great to hear. And so another one, hopefully you guys are saying that we change as well. When someone applies for one, and we had issues with one where a couple years ago, I had to walk this constituent through the entire, knocking on the neighbors' doors. If a parking spot fits in between the neighbor's property, or right for the person who's asking for the parking spot, if the car isn't longer than their property, why are we asking permission of their neighbors on either side? It seems like one, arduous process, but two, you could have an issue with your neighbor. They could just say no. They could just not want to respond. And so we're putting the onus on people that have nothing to do with it. Now, I do understand that if it's tight and you're actually going to, encroach maybe someone's property, maybe, but are we looking to remodify that process to make sure that if I'm asking for something outside of my house that I am able to get it without input from either party on the other side?
Yeah, we're actually, number one, within the code currently for the program, it does require petitions from your neighbors, including the ones that are adjacent to your property. So we're working with the Mayor's Office of Government Relations and others as well too, to see if we can get that removed from city code. So that may be coming to city council at some point, which would remove that requirement. But on top of that, I do know that within our program, we like to at least notify neighbors if, some of the space in front of their home is going to be taken for one of these reserved spaces. But at the end of the day, if it's what's really required in order to put the space in, then it still happens, even if that neighbor, doesn't grant their approval for it.
Okay, that's good to hear. It seems like in certain instances, usually those are the ones that come to us, it's been difficulty trying to get a hold. And I don't know if it's just certain folks aren't following SOPs or if it's just a case-by-case instance, which more than likely it is. But just if we clear that up, it would just make it a lot easier for folks that actually need the space to be able to park in front of their house. It seems like something that makes a lot of sense. So look forward to getting that information from MOGR, and you have a vote here from me. So thank you,
Great.
Madam Chair.
Thank you.
And Councilman Jones?
Thank you, Madam Chair. My question is, just could you explain to me the process of obtaining the ability to do valet parking and kind of how that process is supposed to actually play out in practice as far as, how someone's supposed to operate, I guess, or when they valet park a car? Just curious.
Sure. It's all outlined in city code already, but just sort of a general outline. So if you're a venue like a hotel or a restaurant that wants valet parking, you'd apply for that valet zone at the parking authority. And then we would work with the Department of Transportation, the traffic division there, to see if it might even be possible, because of course, you know, if there's a bus lane or something like that, that they want to put it in, it may not be possible at that spot. Oftentimes we'll look for alternatives for it as well too. But then there's, so there's an application fee associated with it. There is a period of public posting as well too, that's required by city code. And then if it can be worked out, then the space or the spaces, the zone gets put in for valet parking. So that's just sort of the thumbnail synopsis of that. As a valet operator, again, you'd apply through us to be a valid valet operator here within the city. You'd have to show, one other thing, getting back to the valet zone, you also have to demonstrate that you've got a contract to park those cars off-street somewhere so that they're not parked on-street. So that's a requirement. For valet operators, they need to meet certain qualifications, including, you know, being properly insured so that if they damage someone's vehicle, that, you know, that they're going to be able to take care of that claim, that they have a clean record, that they're registered with the state, you know, as a valid business, and then those licenses are granted.
Okay, thank you. The reason why I ask is I never knew that. Often I see valet parking operators like just park a car right across the street on city, like if they see an open spot. Like
They should
just-
not. That's a
just
citable
right.
offense. So,
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Is there enforcement, or what does like enforcement look like to ensure that
You'd
these
have to ask.
operators are, you know, just doing that, putting the car in an open parking spot and just putting it there?
Yep. So Department of Transportation does the enforcement of those, so that might be a question for them. I know
Okay.
that at least at one point, they had sort of a small but dedicated team that was doing the valet enforcement. I do know that if we get complaints, and folks can either call in with complaints, or we've got a form that can be filled in off of our website with complaints, we notify Department of Transportation so that they can send enforcement out there, and our managers will even go out to that site, and if they observe that sort of thing happening, they'll let the operator know that it has to cease, or the zone permit and the operator license could both be revoked if the situation continues.
Yeah, no, I always thought that was weird when I see people pay a premium for to have that car valet parked, and then the person just parks the car on the city street, and the
Yeah.
city isn't getting any revenue from it at all. So, well,
Yeah.
thank you for that clarification. I appreciate it.
Yeah, that was one of the primary reasons why we actually fought to get that valet regulation code into city code, was because of practices like that.
Okay.
Thank you for joining us, Director Little. We're going to be moving into our next agency at this time. That's going to be the Office of the Inspector General.
Okay, thank you.